Welcome to Pack It Like It's Hot, the official podcast from MJS Packaging, where we dive into real-world packaging insights with the people who know it best, our team, our partners, and other industry pros. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Pack It Like It's Hot. This is Cindy Vogel. I'm joined here today by Greg Clark again. How you doing, Greg?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Great.
We have a very special guest here with us today. Many of you may know Dawn Nowicki, who is the Vice President of Marketing and ESG at MRP Solutions. Dawn is very well known in our industry for her expertise, her participation and involvement in the National Association of Container Distributors, and just an all-around great person. So, Dawn, thank you for joining us here today. We really are excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be a part of Pack It Like It's Hot.
All right, Greg's going to kick us off today.
This is a big get. Would you say, Cindy?
Is a big get. That's
what they say
in
the industry. It's a big get. It's a big get. Well, thanks for joining today, Dawn. We appreciate that. Let's talk out of the gate about senior-friendly packaging. Tell us what that means.
So, honestly, senior-friendly has kind of just evolved over time as to what it specifically means for packaging and as a term. It really is some packaging that is easier to open and use and accessible to adults with reduced strength or dexterity issues, chronic pain or arthritis. Doesn't really have to do exactly with their age, but just those challenges that are really posing just issues opening and closing packages. So it has to be senior friendly, but with so many requirements or so many of the ingredients now requiring child resistant packaging, you have to come to a balance of making it not as easy to open for a child, but still accessible for the rest of the population.
Absolutely.
So senior friendly, that term has evolved.
Yeah, that makes sense. More of a general inclusivity or accessibility, I would assume, correct? Yeah, but there are some common pain points that older adults might experience, right? I mean, I know that there are people across the population who might have these things as well, but what would be those common pain points that you see more with seniors?
Well, anything from having lower dexterity and strength that requires just an easier grippable solution is going to be something that you want to think about with seniors. You know, we see pain points from everywhere from, blister packaging that you have to get the scissors out for, to seals and different shrink bands that are really challenging to open. And even just looking at the labeling and the instructions. So it's not just a physical dexterity or grippable solution that you want to make sure you're considering, but all the way from making the instructions very easy to read, and just not having that diameter so it's not too big that they can't grip it, but also not too small that it causes pain when they're trying to squeeze it. So those really pain points are around just the grippability, and then again, looking at the labels, making sure that your instructions are clear and they understand how they're supposed to open it.
I think that's such a good point about the labels, because it's not even just about how to interact with the packaging, but even the ingredients or the benefits of that product as well, right? I mean, low vision is so very common among older adults, and there aren't a lot of things that really cater to that out in mainstream.
Dawn, can you walk us through how materials and closures and ergonomics will play a role in creating a senior-friendly package?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important I mentioned a little bit about the size. So really the size of the package for the senior population, you want to make sure that diameter is a good size for gripping. And you want to make sure that, it's not too big and not too small, because if it's too big, you can't really get the functionality to do the push down and turn, or if it's too small, it's hard to get the actual squeezing and pinching moment, functionality. But that can be done in, anything from the size of the closure all the way to the materials that you're using. You mentioned a little bit about that dexterity and the grippability. So there are some materials out there. We call them, it's often referred to as soft touch. So that one just gives you a little bit more grip and helps to actually make that closure easier to open. MRP has what we call Easy Grip, and that has some big wide knurls on it so that you can get your hands around it and easily turn that off. But even back to the instructions and the look of it, you want to make sure that there's a lot of highlighting or printing that jumps out so that you can read those instructions clearly and understand exactly how it is that you do go about opening that closure.
Excellent. Are there sustainable solutions within those Easy Grip closures as well?
Yes and no. When you're talking about the TPE or that material that is actually designed specifically for that gripability, that often isn't a more sustainable solution. So you are looking at the ergonomics of it and the design of the closure so that you can have something that has the knurls on it, and you can make that in anything. You can make that in a PCR if necessary. So there's different ways you can get around addressing that sustainability side of things. I wouldn't necessarily say that you want to have an elastomer material that is going to be added on, because that's just going to make it less sustainable. So you got to kind of balance those different requirements or different objectives, and to make sure that you're really addressing what is important to your particular customer.
Sure. And then it still fits in with your brand aesthetics and everything else, correct?
Yes, yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest challenges with the brand aesthetics. And, when you're trying to go after sustainability, cost is going to be their number one driver. So a lot of the sustainable sources like a PCR are not, the supply chains just aren't really fully developed. So those supply chains, when you're working through that, it's going to, the manufacturability of that is changed. The aesthetics come to play a part in it. You can't always get the exact same colors. So I think really when you're talking about dividing and addressing the sustainability versus the functionality and what they're trying to accomplish, you want to make sure you understand your customers' pain points and manage those expectations. Really make sure that your customers know that, if you want it to be sustainable, if you want a recyclable material, then you're going to have to give up on some of your look and your feel of it. And you want to make sure that functionality is the ultimate goal, and you're not losing any of that. So it's really a balancing and understanding what your customer specifically is looking for and what's their most important pain point.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Interesting. Dawn, are there industry standards for accessible packaging design?
The only true real industry I would say the U.S. standard is really the CPSC, and that's the Senior Adult Use Effectiveness Test. And CPSC stands for your Consumer Product Safety Commission. So what they're looking for there is that a minimum of 90% of your 100 adults aged 50 to 70 can successfully open and close that package. So that's just within a given time period that they can open and close it. And then that set of product goes on to the child resistant part of it. So that's why it's called senior adult use. And that's the closest thing to having a senior friendly certification. The CPSC does acknowledge that you can have one size that would be that would be not require a child resistant packaging. So that allows some brands to put one size of their product offering out on the shelf, and it is not in a child resistant package. However, you do have to label that this allows or this can be used in a home with younger children. So you got to kind of balance both of those things. And then the Arthritis Foundation has published a series of ease of use packaging guidelines as well, which is a great recommendation to go and look at it for considerations and addressing senior friendly. But again, that just will get you more of an ease of use versus the actual certification. So it's important to balance that and understand, how it's both senior friendly and child resistant.
Is there a single testing source to be able to get kind of pass in both of those areas, or do you have to do two separate types of tests?
Well, the CPSC testing is all done at once, and it does go through. There are a couple of different third-party agencies that will give you that accommodation, but they're really to gain other insights outside of, is your package senior friendly? Sometimes it's good to have a panel, to do a consumer panel and just really watch as the consumers are opening and closing and just learning the pain points that way. But the only other, certification, well, it's not even a certification, but the only other accommodation is that Arthritis Foundation, the Ease of Use Certified program. And that will help you just understand, you can get the Ease of Use seal.
Okay.
But that's completely separate from the CPSC required testing. But there are a couple labs that will do that whole package. They do the senior adult use effectiveness and make sure that it is easily accessible by seniors and still child resistant.
I gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
There are a couple other, there's a Swedish Rheumatism Association, which isn't really focusing on just seniors, but looking at consumers that are actually challenged with dexterity or other kind of issues that are going to help or prevent them from being able to easily access some of the child-resistant packages.
Just out of curiosity, because you mentioned the U.S. specifically, are we ahead or behind the curve on this stuff?
For senior-friendly, I would say, I don't know if there is ahead or behind that
Sure.
We really could say. I mean, I think there are some other agencies that are trying to see how exactly we can, make packaging more suitable for all populations.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think just because there really isn't a certification for senior friendly, that they're really going by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and focusing more on the safety of the products. That's kind of the standard across the board, and it's more where they're doing more certifications or accommodations that are directed towards certain populations that might be challenged.
I gotcha.
So,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Tell us a story, Dawn, about a brand that incorporated senior-friendly packaging into their components or senior-friendly components into their packaging and the impact it made.
Yeah, I think the most popular and really successful example of that is in 2009 when the Aleve brand relaunched and put a package out on the shelf that had the soft touch. And they did a whole redesign on the package. They had the soft touch in the closure itself that made it very easily grippable. They also put in grippable sides using their brand. They kind of they did an oval shaped package. They took away the carton. So in a lot of different ways, this was a very easily accessible, ergonomically friendly package that stood out on the shelf. And really for a brand that was kind of struggling a little bit, really boosted their sales and did a great job to actually highlight the fact that packaging can do to provide a more user-friendly, easy way for a consumer to engage with that package. So it was really important to see not only the closure changes and the grippability, the diameter, and all in with the total package offering that would actually stand out on the shelf. And they made it more sustainable just because they took away cartons and the secondary packaging and so forth. So the package itself may not have been, or the closure itself may not have been a more sustainable offering, but overall total package was. So that was pretty impressive.
It's a great example. That's a wonderful package as well. If anyone has seen that in the marketplace or has not, go buy a bottle of Aleve and try it out.
I have it here on my desk.
I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign, Dawn. You have it handy.
I know, exactly. Am I in the senior population? I don't know.
I was thinking more as if work's causing you to need a leave. That's the real challenge.
That's right.
Well, Dawn, we want to thank you very much for joining us here today. We appreciate your insights on the whole accessibility with packaging and all the different trends and innovations that have gone on there. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to our MJS podcast. Make sure to follow and listen on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Tune in next month when we will be joined by another packaging expert. And remember, packaging solutions are just a click away at mjspackaging.com.